one member that's already in Florida, spending most of his time. You don't want to overwork the loyal people of the producers' room. So I got to go here today, so why not?
Well, we are extending your day by having you here on the show. But we love to have you here, Joshy. Love to have you as well here as we dive into all things tournament. It's kind of breaking format here, but the upcoming tournament is the reason we are breaking format, and with great reason. We're going to try and do a couple of different things tonight. Number one, we'll take a look at local teams, and I know the betting system is a little different here at Potawatomi Sportsbook with regard to Marquette and Wisconsin, but can we find a path for either team to the Final Four? I think it's worth looking at. But I really want to go through each region, spend time with each specific region, because now that the brackets are out, the numbers have changed a little bit. The pathway to the Final Four is now right in front of us. It's sitting in our bracket. We didn't know this a week ago. We just knew the teams. We had a good idea for the teams that would be involved. So I want to look at each region and scout who we believe will emerge as the best value to reach the Final Four in each region. Can we do that? Can we find maybe a long shot pick that we like, find the best value, ultimate champ? We can figure all this kind of stuff out, but I think this is all about finding value in the tournament, Ben.
It's always about finding value. Now that we have something to work with, is there a place you want to start?
Let's start with the East region, because there is only one team in the East region where you're going to have to put a little more coin down if you think they will reach the Final Four, and that is Duke at minus 143. Every other team in the region is plus money, right? Alabama at plus 400 as a number 2 seed, Arizona plus 800 as a 4 seed, and on down the line. So the money is on Duke here, or the odds believe that Duke is going to emerge.
I also think they did get a really good draw, which is why you saw Auburn have that minus money before the tournament, and to see what their draw is compared to Duke, the odds reflect that.
So here we've seen a little bit of a flip. The only two teams that have minus money to reach the Final Four are Duke and Florida, based on maybe the path, maybe the matchup, maybe how Auburn stumbled a little bit down the stretch, but they still very much pose a threat to any team in their wake. But let's start with the East. Given what you've seen out of Duke and what you've said about Duke throughout the course of this year, Ben, I don't think the injury to Cooper Flagg is going to weigh into the games of substance beyond maybe the first game, Thursday or Friday. But do you like Duke to emerge out of this group? Are they the clear-cut best team in this region?
110%. The 8-9 matchups that Duke got are the best 8-9 matchups of the entire bracket. I've been following Mississippi State because I do something in January. They're one of my teams. They're known to be a defensive-minded team. They're not. They tried to change the system a little bit, similar to the Badgers, but aren't as effective doing it. Their record reflects that in the SEC. 21-12. I think they won 8 games in conference. They were 8-12 in conference. So Duke's getting the one of the worst of the goods of the SEC. Plus Baylor, you see their record at 19-14. The Big 12 wasn't that great, and Baylor snuck their way in some early wins. They deserve to be in the tournament, but they're not a team that's going to take down Duke. They don't have the talent of the Baylor teams that have made a run. Oregon is a sneaky, scary team because Dana Altman is good in March. I believe he's got the 3rd best record against the spread over the last 10 years in the tournament, but I don't think they can keep up with Duke. And then I think Arizona's fraudulent. Wisconsin, I don't think, can keep up with Duke. Duke is more efficient defensively, and Duke can score with Wisconsin. Alabama and Duke, the way Alabama's lost is when they get outscored, which is crazy because they literally don't have a defensive bone in their body. So these matchups for Duke are just wonderful with how balanced they are. I think it would be like if Duke played like a Tennessee as a 2 seed, right? And Tennessee makes it an ugly, low-scoring game. That's like that. Those are the tight games that you look for Duke. I don't see anyone that's going to really challenge them and really make them as uncomfortable as like a Tennessee type team as a 2 seed would do.
I liked Oregon until they got a 5 seed and are paired up with Liberty as a number 12.
Dana Altman has never lost a first-round game in his 8 years at Oregon,
including a win over Wisconsin a couple of years ago. Joshua, what do you think?
The interesting thing is a vintage, obviously we can't bet on that here, but a vintage Wisconsin team would at least be an interesting matchup if they were as good and ranked highly. The problem is here is Duke at minus 143, you're laying a pretty significant amount of money on something that crazy things happen. It is.
Yeah, I wouldn't do the bet,
right?
But they would be the bet if I had to make it.
If you force me into it, and interestingly enough, the next one I'd probably make is Wisconsin, simply based on value. Because when you look at some of these teams, obviously we can't do that here. I don't feel as good about Alabama as you do, and I feel like this was sort of consensus when we saw that bracket come out. Everyone looked around and said, "Man, I think Duke is pretty much going to coast." They're gonna have a pretty easy route. Ben mentioned the 8-9 matchup. Not going to be much there. We saw Arizona against Wisconsin. We saw what that looked like. So this is one of those where you just, if you're making a pick, you take the favorite and you ride. We know Cooper Flagg's name because he's going to be the first overall pick. He's going to be healthy. We know Con Knippel because he's a local kid. It just feels like this one is written down. I think there's probably value in a lot of the other brackets that we can look at, but this one seems simple. Do what's in front of you. Take the easy route. It's Duke minus 143.
Don't overthink it.
I was watching VCU play over the weekend in their conference championship game against George Mason, and I thought it was interesting that VCU had a net rating of 31, right? So now you're talking about a team that could make an argument to be a fringe top 25 team, and they're a number 11 seed. So I started to put in the back of my mind, well, VCU is kind of interesting to watch, right? They've got a bit of a history here under Shaka Smart of making a run in the tournament. And then I saw they end up with BYU in the first round and potentially Wisconsin in the second round if the Badgers can get by Montana and if VCU can get by BYU. So there is another example of a team that it looks really interesting on paper and maybe you find some value, but then you look at their path. BYU is nothing easy about that team. You may not know much about it playing out of the Mountain West, but I do think Wisconsin is better than both these teams, but that's not an easy matchup for the Badgers. I see plus 4,000, and I'm wondering if that is more path-related, Ben, or if it's more related to there being an 11 seed and the likelihood of an 11 seed going to the Final Four. It's not unprecedented.
Not unprecedented.
But it's not common.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think there's been like 5 to 6 11 seeds all time, and Syracuse, Jim Boeheim being one of them. Not too long ago, obviously, you had. I think last year. Am I going crazy?
What was NC State?
NC State was an 11 seed.
Were they?
Yes. And then you also look a little bit more recent as well. You had UCLA, a first 4 team who was an 11 seed. 11 seeds do well, but relying on them to the Sweet 16 is about as far as I would take that. Otherwise, you're just sort of getting in the guessing game after that.
And what is interesting is that North Carolina, after the win yesterday, is plus 1,100 now to reach the Final Four, and VCU is still plus 4,000.
There's a discrepancy in talent.
Well, there definitely is, and there's certainly an interesting case.
Hubert Davis, 9-1 in the NCAA tournament.
So that is the East region. We think Duke is the best team here, but do you think the most value comes somewhere else? If you are going to put money down to reach the Final Four, do you just ride with Duke because of their path being the easiest?
Well, let's work in a scenario that it's not Duke, right? I think Josh is right, and I agree. From a metric standpoint, Badgers are one of 8 teams that meet the metric that would be a team that fits in would win an NCAA tournament. That doesn't mean they're going to. They just fit the metrics of the 8 teams that 90% of the time win the tournament. Wisconsin's one of them. The flyer I would take is Oregon, just from an coaching and an athletic ability to hang with Duke. They got an athletic big. They have a really big stretch 5 that can stretch the floor. They're a unique team. Other than that, Tommy Lloyd's never done in the tournament. Arizona's, you mentioned, I think, Arizona before.
I think Yale's going to beat them.
Arizona's lost to teams in the Pac-12 after beating the best team in Iowa State at the time, and then you look at their schedule, like, wait, how did they drop that one? That's too scary for me. I need a team that has some pop, and Oregon is, I think, 8-2 in their last 10. So you might as well ride something hot if you're going to take a flyer. If we're going outside of Duke right now.
When it comes to March, what ends up happening a lot of times, and I've fallen victim to this a lot, is you fall in love with a team based on a lot of the metrics, the numbers, and you don't pay enough attention to the matchups and the bracket that they end up in and the region that they end up in. Like, you're talking VCU here, and I've had teams like this too where you're like, this is a team I could see make a run. And then you see their matchup, and your brain tells you this is not a good spot for them, and I probably should back off this. but you end up following it anyways because you're chasing it and you're trying to prove yourself right. This one to me makes a lot of sense of just riding Duke here.
That was kind of the trap I fell into with VCU.
Yeah.
I like a 31 net rating for an 11 seed. Like, to me, that screams value. And then you see their path, and it's like, well, this is just it's become far more complicated.
And the odds reflect that.
The life of an 11 seed is complicated, right? It just sort of is. Interesting nugget about Oregon here. They're 7-point favorites over 12-seeded Liberty on Friday. It's also the very late game. It's a 9-10 tip, one of the last games you will see. Actually, the last game you will see on Friday night will be Oregon against Liberty, unless another game goes to overtime and gets delayed a little bit. That is an interesting team to watch, playing out of the Big Ten. No lack of talent plus good coaching, right? That's a nice combination for Oregon.
Well, real quick, I mean, those 12-5s are something a lot of people talk about. McNeese State plus 7.5 against Clemson. You have Michigan, who just won the Big Ten tournament, is only 2.5-point favorites against UC San Diego as a 12 seed. We've talked about the other 12-5 of Oregon and Liberty at that -7, and then Colorado State is favored. As a 12 seed.
That's
favored against
one.
Memphis.
They started the season 5-5 and then got red hot.
Interesting nugget about them. 12 seeds that are favorites.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this one up.
2-0 in their history. So if that 12 seed is favored, they win the game. And they usually do end up covering. Like there's been the two games that I looked at here. It was Middle Tennessee over Minnesota and Syracuse. They lost to Texas A&M, and they cleared by like 10 points. Those were solid victories because I think they're trying to bake in. Everybody's going to look at the seeding and say it makes sense. Now everyone knows the 5-12 upset. That's just a thing we all know about.
The favorite thing is that's where you gotta again. It might be a best bet. We'll have to stay tuned.
We do have best bets coming up a little later in the show. Coming up next, we're going to look at the Midwest region. Can we find betting value here out of the Midwest? Everybody is plus money. Everybody. That includes Houston, the top overall seed in that region. We like Duke coming out of the East at -143. Keep an eye on Oregon as a team of intrigue at plus 3,500. Just getting started. Here it is, the weekly wager from Potawatomi Sportsbook. We're back after this.
More bets coming up. This is the Weekly Wager on 94.5 ESPN. What happens when you mix a 3-time Wisconsin Sports Writer of the Year with a Packers Hall of Famer?
I always loved the line, I'm not here to prove them wrong. I'm here to prove us right.
But that's from a not-petty person. A petty person would never say that.
Wilde and Tausch, presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin.
Is that why Tom Petty was playing when you kicked that guy?
Yeah, that's Matchbox 20.
Kurt Petty.
Catch him from 9 to noon right here on 94.5 ESPN, the Wisconsin On Demand app, and at ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube.
ESPN Radio Sports Beat with Freddie Coleman.
Is it finally going to be this team's turn to win a national championship? The team I'm talking about, no, not the UConn women. They've won enough championships. Could it be Paige Becker's turn to finally break through and win that elusive championship? No, the team I'm talking about are the Houston Cougars led by Kelvin Sampson. For my money, and believe me, Florida's really good. Duke is really good. Auburn is really good. Houston's really good. Those are the 4 number 1 seeds in the men's NCAA tournament. But for my money, Houston may be the most complete team. The way they can take away points in the offensive end, they don't even give up 59 points per game. They're the best defensive team in any metric in the country. But the big difference compared to previous years, they don't score, they score. And they got guys like LJ Cry and the trio guards that can make plays happen up and down the floor in the half-court set. Maybe, just maybe, it could finally be Houston's turn because Lord knows they've done everything possible to keep knocking on that door. In 60 seconds, St. John's coach Rick Pitino getting shorted on being a legend?
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, millions of men experience ED, but not everyone can access or afford treatments like Viagra. At HIMSS, our own board-certified urologist, Dr. Peter Stahl, knows this better than anyone, and he knows that HIMSS can help.
Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Stahl, Senior Vice President of Men's Sexual Health at HIMSS. I've helped many guys with ED, and it has never been more convenient to treat than it is right now, thanks to HIMSS.
Through HIMSS.com, you can access a full range of treatment options for ED, including daily or as-needed meds through a 100% online process. If prescribed, your medication is shipped to you for free. Find the ED treatment that fits your needs. Options at up to 95% less than the brand names when you get started at hims.com/joy. To start your free online visit and find ED treatment at up to 95% less than brand name prices, go to hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit.
If you don't know the story by now, you definitely know the story when it comes to Rick Pitino about to take not his first or his second or his third or his fourth or his fifth, but his sixth team to the NCAA tournament. It got started way back when in the 80s in Boston University, and here we are in 2025, and he's still that kind of coach that can take something out of nothing or take something really, really good and make it even better. Nobody saw this in year two when it came to St. John's basketball, not just winning the Big East regular season championship, but also winning the Big East tournament championship and being a legitimate threat to get to the national championship game, or at worst, the Final Four. We talk about the great coaches in the history of college basketball, and those names are legendary. John Wooden, Mike Krzyzewski, Bobby Knight, etc. But that Rick Pitino guy, he hasn't been too shabby. Maybe we need to give more of a credit to him being a legend than we actually want to. For the ESPN Radio Sports Beat, I'm Freddie Coleman of ESPN Radio's Freddie and Harry.
Stay up to date on the Green and Gold all off season. The Green and Gold Fix podcast is brought to you by Potawatomi Casino Hotel. Luxury stay, elite play, unwind in sophisticated comfort. Win big, dine, and experience the events in Milwaukee.
For general contest rules, visit ESPNWisconsinContest.com.
Gruber's Offices, a proud partner of your Milwaukee Bucks.
This is the Weekly Wager live from Potawatomi Sportsbook on 94.5 ESPN and at ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube.
Cross off CNC Music Factory on your bump bingo card. Greg Matzik, Josh DiMaggio, Ben Bruss back with you. It is the Weekly Wager here from Potawatomi Sportsbook. Chris Larson producing the program. And the madness has already started here. We saw a buzzer beater last night, for goodness sake, in one of the play-in games. North Carolina then rolled to victory. And we are off and running here with a pair of 16 seeds on the floor right now in a high-scoring affair, very close game to watch, albeit in the first half.
That North Carolina outcome was just written in the stars, wasn't it? With the way they got the attention, the poor attention, the bad attention.
That was a big middle finger to anybody who said North Carolina doesn't belong. Now, and the fact is, West Virginia or Indiana could have done a very similar thing to that opponent, and maybe we're not talking about it. But yeah, it's a little eyebrow raising that North Carolina is in the tournament, given their resume stacked against others, but they did also pick up a win for the opportunity to be among now the field of 64.
Yeah, again, I mean, props to them. They shouldn't have been in it, but you're in it, and you do what you can.
Well, and it's great motivation. Middle finger to everybody. No one thinks we should be here, so let's go prove we belong.
Who doesn't love a good narrative that you don't belong? It's like, it's just great motivation. It brings the team together.
The amount of favorites I've heard win a championship and say no one believed in us.
Oh my gosh.
They have the real no one believed
Travis
in us.
Kelce.
Yeah, no, everyone believed in you.
You have the greatest quarterback in our generation right now.
Georgia, we get it. You were ranked for number one all year.
No one believed in us. If Duke does that.
Yes, right.
Continuing our breakdown of the regions here, I want to move to the Midwest. And the Midwest, to me, is maybe the most up-for-grabs region of the four. And the numbers, I think, reflect that, because everybody is plus money here. Houston has the number one seed in that region, plus 120. And not a significant drop-off for Tennessee as the number 2 seed at plus 340. Kentucky, the number 3 seed at plus 900. Purdue actually has worse odds than Clemson as a number 4 seed versus a number 5, should they end up on the same line against one another. But this region seems a little more up for grabs. You're talking about among the number 1 seeds, Josh, a team in Houston that, look, very good team, no doubt about it. Not among the Power 5 conferences, so a different run to the tournament. But at plus 120, among the number 1 seeds, that is the longest odds of reaching the Final Four.
Yeah, this team has evolved a little bit. They are still sort of the stingy defense that people remember them as. But there's a reason here this bracket and this region is so up for grabs here. I do think their offense has evolved. Ben can probably give you the details on that, but they're a pretty good three-point shooting team, but it still feels like a team that has potential to just get outmanned, outscored when individual talent sort of reaches a point. Like, they're a solid team. They got the 1 seed for one reason, but there's a reason they're plus 120. And some of these teams, like if you look down here, Gonzaga at plus 900 as an 8 seed.
I was just going to say, I have Gonzaga over Houston.
Yes, that's exactly. You can look at my bracket here. I have the same thing written in there. I think that's a very big potential upset spot for them. Now, we have to figure out
just as much experience, just in a worse conference.
And a lot of talent.
A lot of talent. Yes. Ryan Nembhard is no joke.
Yes.
Graham Ike, their big, is like, he's a top 5, like, school would want him type big.
Yes. So that's what makes it really interesting and makes their path pretty difficult, because also they're looking at Clemson, a team we talked about as like one of those dark horse long shot odds teams. So even if they get past Gonzaga, Clemson is likely looming. I think we all probably think Purdue is a little bit of fraudulent. That's probably one of the more popular picks. And then you've got a team like Xavier here who's getting a little heat for being like a potential dark horse bracket buster type style that could make a run. I don't know if I agree with it.
I don't.
But I do know they were plus 12,000 at one point to come out of this bracket, and now they're down to plus 9,000. So I imagine there is some interest there and some intrigue. I honestly think they probably lose to Texas or whoever comes out.
Well, that's it. I think, 8 o'clock tonight?
Yeah. So that's one that's interesting to me. If I'm looking here, I'm looking at Gonzaga, I'm looking at Clemson. I don't know, Ben, do you feel like making a case for UCLA or a Texas?
No. I think I could make a case for UCLA. I don't buy Kentucky. Mm-hmm. They've been too up and down. That 3 seed is very, very nice considering some of the games that they dropped in the SEC. I know it's generous. A tough conference.
They're live to lose to Troy.
I thought it was a very high seed for Kentucky. I just think Tennessee, you're looking at a team that actually just beat Auburn in the SEC championship, but have played consistent the entire year. They know their identity. I know they lost Dalton Kennett. Chaney is a very good scorer for them. And Ziegler's been a guy who's been in the tournament forever because Tennessee's made the tournament. And as a senior point guard plus the number 1 defensive efficiency team in the country, they're going to get to the Sweet 16. UCLA can't. UCLA is UCLA would want to be what Tennessee is, but they're not this year. And so it's if you're getting those two in a matchup, I'm taking Tennessee all day because Tennessee's done it all year. Where UCLA in the Big Ten finished 4th, and the Badgers obviously destroyed them in the quarterfinal game, but they're not that good based off the fact that they were a 4th best team in the Big Ten. They're a 7 seed for a reason.
Tennessee is the best value out of this region. They are. They're the best value out of this region.
Gonzaga, man. I'm telling you, the Zags.
That number gets big, but I think getting a 2 seed at plus 340.
Win their own conference.
They just beat St. Mary's after St. Mary's beat them twice. Those are 2 quality teams.
Yeah.
And if we want to look at them in a vacuum, you can say that, but they're a top 10 Ken Pom team. Top 10 Ken Pom team at an 8 seed. I'm going to take the value of a top 10 Ken Pom team with Mark Few and Gonzaga and the talent that they have on that team. Not going to let 3 games disrupt what they are capable of doing in a one-and-done tournament.
I don't know how good of a team they are, but as Ben said, Mark Few, that's a great. Coaching matters, especially at this point. And the individual talent, they were smacking teams in their conference. Aside from St. Mary's, they were really laying it on them. I think 340 here. If you're going to make a bet here, that's probably most reasonable. Ben and I are going out on a limb and trying to sort of hit a home run here. Plus 900 implies that
this
odds.
Is what we do. We look for the plus 600, plus 900. That's you put $20 on it,
right?
If you want to protect that value, you can also lay some money on a team you believe in that you can also make money on, but be okay with a 20 lost on the plus 900.
Gonzaga is certainly far better than a dart throw, right? And I don't know if I would say they're the best value out of this group, but far better than a dart throw. If they were a 7 seed, I think I might ride the train here. I don't like that they run into Houston in round number 2. If they can get beyond Georgia, I don't think Houston has any problem.
But that's the thing. This is what we look at, is if they do get by Houston, I think they're better than Clemson, McNeese, Purdue, and High Point.
Yeah. And then that puts them in a game against Tennessee.
That puts them 1 game away from getting out.
And similarly, I think Tennessee is far better than anybody else on their side of things, and That includes the number 3 seed Kentucky, which to me, coming out of the SEC, is
Kentucky did
how
beat
they got
Tennessee
buoyed.
twice this year, for the record.
Well, now you go to a situation where it's a little bit different in the tournament. No, neutral-sided. Kentucky will travel well, no doubt about that.
Would they face each other? No, they would be. No,
Tennessee
I'm saying they would be
could.
Sweet 16. I know it's in Lexington, Kentucky for the first round for Tennessee.
Yes, that is correct. So that's what we're looking at here coming out of the Midwest region. You do have a spattering of teams here that we're very familiar with, a lot of high major teams, including in the number 9 spot with Georgia. That's a team that likely gets tamped down a little bit because of playing in the SEC conference, a conference that has just an unprecedented number of participants in it this year. I don't really buy Clemson. Everybody saw the win over Duke. That's a headline grabber. Mm-hmm. Out of a weak conference that I don't know much about McNeese, but at first blush you think, well, maybe. Are they for real or are they frauds at a 5 seed? Clemson, given the conference they played in. One great signature win, others decent wins.
I would bet the points. I don't know if I would take them to win in a bracket, but I like 7.5 for McNeese.
7.5 for McNeese as a 12 seed. All right, that is a look at the Midwest region. When we come back, going to take a look at the South region. Only 3 teams have better than plus 1,100 odds to reach the Final Four, and one has a star player injured. We'll take a look at the South region coming up in just a couple of minutes. Want to see you at Potawatomi Sportsbook throughout the course and run of the tournament. Get your spot secured. Come hang out. Enjoy food coming out of that kitchen. The bar is fantastic. Furniture is comfortable. It's just a great place to be. And you know the games are going to be on that 2,000 square foot video wall. Hang out with us. It's Potawatomi Sportsbook throughout the run of the tournament.
More bets coming up. This is the Weekly Wager on 94.5 ESPN.
An ESPN Radio Extra Point. With Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, and Michelle Smallman.
We continuously have this conversation about the NBA and about load management and about stars playing consistently. It's a conversation that persists.
No doubt.
And when you have this type of a matchup, and the reason why you're so intrigued by this matchup is to see these 2 stars and these 2 teams go against one another, and then one team elects to sit those guys. That is problematic for the viewer. And so I don't think it's a situation that's overblown because it's something that continues to happen.
But I understand why you want to pace your stars. Steph Curry is 37 years old. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be able to give it to you every single night in terms of what he did a decade ago when the Golden State Warriors dynasty was rolling. So I understand how they're approaching this, and I don't have an issue with it, but I fully expect that that's going to lead to a more compelling product once we get into the postseason.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, millions of men experience ED, but not everyone can access or afford treatments like Viagra. At Hims, our own board-certified urologist, Dr. Peter Stahl, knows this better than anyone, and he knows that Hims can help.
Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Stahl, Senior Vice President of Men's Sexual Health at Hims. I've helped many guys with ED, and it has never been more convenient to treat than it is right now, thanks to Hims.
Through Hims.com, you can access a full range of treatment options for ED, including daily or as-needed meds through a 100% online process. If prescribed, your medication is shipped to you for free. Find the ED treatment that fits your needs. Options at up to 95% less than the brand names when you get started at hims.com/joy. To start your free online visit and find ED treatment at up to 95% less than brand name prices, go to hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit.
Be the MVP of gift giving with a Milwaukee Bucks gift card. From exhilarating Bucks experiences to unforgettable Fiserv Forum events, your gift card recipient can score tickets to Bucks games and other events through the Ticketmaster box office. Shop exclusive gear at the Bucks Pro Shop or get a favorite snack at Fiserv Forum's concessions. It's a win-win gift that lets them choose their experience. To purchase a gift card, visit bucks.com/gift cards.
Let's talk about Home Turf. Your lawn is a reflection of your pride, hard work, and even competitive spirit. If you want a yard that makes the neighbors stop and stare, you need the right plan. That's where Weedman Lawn Care comes in. Weedman's lawn care program is kid and pet friendly, uses golf course quality fertilizer, and has an effective weed treatment to dominate any issue. Get a free quote of Weedman's winning formula for your yard at weedman.com and get 50% off your first treatment. That's weedman.com. Weedman for the win.
Think ski season is over? Well, think again. Granite Peak's bringing you Wisconsin's longest ski season, going strong through April 6th. We're talking spring skiing at Wisconsin's largest resort with live music, fireworks, and endless snow across our incredible terrain. Make it a getaway in nearby Wausau, where comfortable lodging and family activities await. Why travel far when the best spring skiing is right here? Book your ski and stay packages today. Visit skigranitepeak.com for lift tickets and lodging packages. Granite Peak, where winter lasts longer.
My house has a new glow. I love my windows. Universal Windows Direct.
It's ESPN Milwaukee's Kyle Walls for Universal Windows Direct. The tax time sale is going on now, and they'll make your wallet even happier by paying no interest until 2030. Schedule your free in-home estimate today.
I love my windows. They've got that brand new home effect. Universal Windows Direct.
You're listening to the Weekly Wager live from Potawatomi Sportsbook on 94.5 ESPN and at ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube.
Tournament time. The Weekly Wager continues on 94.5 ESPN. Greg Matzik, Ben Brust, and Josh DiMaggio in for Jen Latta. We've got college basketball on our mind here, going through each of the four regions here in the upcoming tournament. Games begin in earnest tomorrow. Of course, the Badgers play about 12:30 tomorrow afternoon. Marquette will tip off about 6:30 on Friday. Looking forward to the games here, and Potawatomi Sportsbook certainly the place to be. Want to turn our attention to the South region. I like a team, and no surprise who it is, and we'll get to that coming up. Coming out of the South region to represent the South region in the Final Four. But interestingly enough here, Ben, only 3 teams out of this region have better than plus 1,100 odds at reaching the Final Four. In fact, nobody is negative money. Auburn has the closest to negative money at plus 105, so they've taken a little bit of a hit here, due in part to maybe a late season singular stumble, or maybe it's their path, but they are no longer negative money to reach the Final Four.
I'm shocked by this, actually. I really am. Considering what you had said, and as I look at the teams, they're going to have no problem getting to the Elite Eight. Like, they're just not. Louisville and Creighton can't keep up with Auburn over an entire game. Then when I think about how Michigan is, I've said it, they're fraudulent. They play a lot of tight games. I know they won the Big Ten tournament, but don't let the recency bias get to you. Texas A&M can't shoot or make free throws. Like, those are the teams that would have to beat Auburn for them not to get to the Elite Eight. So I'm not going to lie, at plus 105, after all the times that they've been minus money, I kind of like that bet, if I'm going to be honest. I feel like it's now shifted to a point where I do have value on what has been the best team the entire year and the number 1 overall seed in this tournament. I don't think their draw is that difficult. Like, Louisville is a good story. I don't think they can do it. Creighton has, like, Janiah Broome would run circles around Kalkbrenner.
They're not even ranked.
I just like, so they're in the Sweet 16. Then Michigan, UC San Diego, Texas A&M, and Yale. No, so it's. Do you believe Michigan State or Iowa State will beat Auburn? And I don't.
Yeah, it really comes down to those two teams as the only ones that you could see really giving a run. I do tend to side with Ben here on Auburn. You take the team that's been the best all year. You can point to whatever you want to at the end of the year. I don't think it matters all that much. I think this is a team that's known pretty much since day one
what their ultimate goal is.
National championship is the goal. Everything else is noise until there. If you ask me to go outside of it, the only place I'm really looking is Iowa State at plus 525. I think they're destined to meet in the Elite Eight, and what you're making there is a prayer of maybe in a one game off, something crazy happens. You get the ball to go the right way for Iowa State. Maybe they finally do break through in a way you want and end up beating a team like Auburn. But There's going to be a 1 seed, probably 2 of them that make it to the Final Four.
Typically is. I mean, like we talk about upsets a lot, but there's usually at least 2 1 seeds in the Final Four.
Yeah, this feels like a don't overthink it play.
Iowa State is an interesting team here because I think they are befitting of a number 3 seed. However, they've got an injury, a key injury to a key player, which I'm very curious to see how things played out behind the scenes, Ben. Not to deviate too much here, but my thought was the Badgers needed a win over Michigan to lock down an opportunity to play in Milwaukee. And here's why I think that. Because it was either them or Iowa State, one or the other, both on that 3 seed line. A very easy switch for the selection committee if it came down to it. I don't know if the selection committee knew of the injury to a key player on Iowa State's team before they were slotted as a number 3 seed.
Correct. Injury or not, what I've learned about the committee is they don't put as much stock in the later games of conference tournaments closest to Selection Sunday. They basically, sometimes they have a contingency if a bid steal will happen, but a lot of the times they're probably looking that even if Wisconsin wins this game, it doesn't change where we have them on the board.
It seems
because they have to utilize the body of work throughout the entire year, and then as they get to Sunday, if the Badgers the last game before the selection show, I doubt they're scrambling to change a seed and location.
It would have been very easy, though. Right, 3 for a 3, flip flop. It's not like you're doing a 3 and a 6.
Yeah,
and a 4
but
and
it does matter on what teams, like who's in Iowa State's region. Then you're looking at Michigan State and Wisconsin. They might want to keep them away from each other in the Sweet 16 because of conferences. Like it affects where the Badgers are. That would mean if you flip them, then Iowa State and BYU could meet in the second round, and they're in the same conference. So it's never that easy to make a quick switch.
It's pretty clear to me that they have a real skeleton in the bracket filled out like 80% probably by the semifinals of the conference tournaments of each of them.
I'd say 90.
Yeah, they just sort of tinker in little spots because there was a way to give Wisconsin the same amount of rest as some of the other teams, and they simply chose not to. Now, why you wouldn't do that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Because they had the majority of it filled out before.
Right, but what it tells me is that was already planned, and that was set in stone, and there wasn't going to be much, if anything at all, that could change it.
So the South region sizes up for Auburn to make a clear run toward the Elite Eight at the very least, at plus 105. Michigan State, I've liked them since really the midway point of the season where they caught fire. I think a week ago they were plus 405 to reach the Final Four, and now the bracket is laid out and they are plus 425. So not a significant change here. Yes, they lose to Wisconsin. No shame in that. That's a quad 1 loss and a quad 1 win for the Badgers. Iowa State's injury, I think, will catch up to them at some point in this tournament. And to be quite honest, I'm just not a big believer in Texas A&M or Louisville, and certainly not Michigan. And to be candid, I know Marquette is a number 7 seed. Boy, that's a 7 seed you probably don't want to see if you're a team like Michigan State.
That's exactly who I want to see, to be completely honest. They have no size.
Marquette's just not that great.
Michigan State has 4 bigs that they rotate, and they will eat Marquette on the offensive glass. If you think Marquette's going to win, you're relying on them as a 32% three-point shooting team, having a game like they did, I believe it was Xavier, in which they scored 50-plus points in the second half. They're going to need a performance like that they haven't shown consistently throughout the entire year to get by Michigan State, who is just deep and talented. I don't think they're that good. They can't shoot very well outside of Jace Richardson, but they are a team that has just figured out a system to win games. But I don't think the system that they have is really good for Marquette.
With a day to prepare, and maybe a little bit you're doing it this week, Ben, you'd be a better judge on that.
Yeah, they can't look ahead of where they're at right now.
No, and Marquette certainly can't. Maybe
I was
Michigan
more so
State
saying
can
Marquette
a little bit
there,
more.
yeah.
That game against New Mexico is going to be very interesting, by the way. Very fast-paced offenses, and Cam Jones and the point guard for New Mexico are both outstanding.
Donovan Dent.
I like Michigan State to come out of this group at plus 425. I think it's good value. I think they're playing well. There's an Izzo factor here. We've talked a lot about coaching. And they're strong. They're just a strong team.
out on them.
They are Yeah, every team is flawed to some degree, except maybe the tip top. But you could find an argument to say that Duke is even flawed because of their lack of experience. Auburn stumbled down the stretch a little bit. Does that weigh into their mind as they approach some big games here getting on in the tournament? Michigan State has a history of doing things in March, and they are well coached. And at plus 425, I think there's some value there.
I made my case against them. I'm not just going to keep bearing it home. I like Auburn here. And that's the thing, is the last bracket we did, I had the 1 seed out in the second round from a value standpoint, and looking at the metrics of Gonzaga and how I believe in the talent. And, it's just one of those matchups where I think they can get Houston there. But that being said, I don't think anybody, as I look at these teams, is touching Auburn. They're just not.
I do like plus 105. That's a good number. If that's minus money, if that's minus 105, I'm probably still kind of liking it. Yeah. But plus 105 for a team that's been, at the top of the charts here for the bulk of the season.
Surprised they're not making you lay any juice there, to be completely honest.
Yeah,
even minus 105, to protect themselves a little bit on juice.
That's giving me the yips a little bit. I'm a little confused by it,
but don't overthink it.
Right. That's sort of one of those things where I think you just trust your instincts on it. I think you can make a case for either one of them, but there's going to be one or two seeds, and we'll get to the other one I think was probably destined to make it there here in the West soon. It's just, to me, just trust Auburn.
Josh has got the yips, as we've discussed many times in this program. It's far better than the runs. We do have the West region to come up on the other side, okay? So the other team that is minus money here to win it all.
Somebody on YouTube wants Josh to sock me one time for the culture.
I will not be hitting anyone.
For what culture?
No, I was going to say you've slapped me before, so just go back and find it on YouTube or
Wasn't
Twitter.
That for the MAC Fund?
Sock him?
No, I know, but didn't he slap you to raise money for the MAC Fund?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah,
but there was some extra oomph in that chef guy, not Chef Ed, but a different chef. A lot of chefs in the chat today.
That's fantastic. We do love that. West region. We'll find a winner. We'll find value. We do have our best bets to come before the end of the program. Hang with us here. It's the Weekly Wager on 94.5 ESPN.
More bets coming up. This is the Weekly Wager on 94.5 ESPN. Gruber Law Office's Thanalysis Live is back. March 29th at Potawatomi Casino Hotel. Join Thanasis Adetokunbo for a live show that's sure to entertain like none other. Last year it was a surprise appearance from ESPN's Stephen A. Smith. You never know what Thanasis has planned for 2025. Get your tickets to Thanalysis Live right now. Visit ESPN Milwaukee on Twitter for event and ticket info. It's Gruber Law Office's Thanalysis Live, presented by Potawatomi Casino Hotel and Carbless. Also supported by the Prisoner Wine Company and McDonald's.
Being a Pella consultant means helping people build their dreams.
For Jenna, helping others find joy is so rewarding. It's why we love to do what we do.
I enjoy simplifying the process for the customer, taking the time to listen, and finding the right solution.
Randy understands that everyone's situation is different, so we don't just slap together cookie cutter solutions.
Customers really appreciate just how prepared we are. All the samples, the videos, pictures.
Jake arrives at your free in-home consultation with pre-prepared materials to fully envision your dream Pella build.
We are with you from start to finish. You literally have a friend from beginning to end and beyond with your project.
Whether you're working with Ryan or another Pella consultant, we don't go away after the sale. We're ready with anything you may need before, during, and after installation. And right now at Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin, get 0% interest for up to 72 months. Visit PellaWI.com today.
Certain restrictions apply. Hits 3/31/2025.
Hey, it's Gabe Neitzel from ESPN Milwaukee's Jen, Gabe, and Chewy. Golf season is going to be here before you know it, so you have to make sure you're ready to go at X Golf in Brookfield or X Golf in Mech 1. Take advantage of the state-of-the-art simulators that they have to make sure your game is in the best shape it possibly can be. Maybe you need a lesson from one of their PGA pros to make sure you're beating your buddies when it's time to play outside. Plus, you can take advantage of the great food and drink specials that they have. Book a tee time today, xgolfbrookfield.com or xgolfmech1.com.
Hi, Drew and Jonathan Scott here, reminding you that American Family Insurance agents can help build a customized renter's policy so you can protect stuff like this, or this, or even this. Well, case in point. Life's better when you're under American Family's roof. Insure carefully, dream fearlessly. Get a quote and find an agent at amfam.com.
Products not available in every state. American Family Mutual Insurance Company SI and its operating company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
only thing that tops our selection is your savings discount liquor.
TGIM. Thank goodness it's March. Court is in session. Basketball tournament time is the most exciting time of the year. Are you set for tip-off? Get those brackets ready and stock up for all the games with a trip to Discount Liquor. Hi, this is Marie from Discount Liquor, where since 1960, we've been your one-stop shop for everything alcohol-related. With a selection of over 15,000 varieties of beer, wine, liquor, and mixers, all at the lowest prices in town, Discount Liquor is sure to make your tournament party a success. So get those brackets together and start the madness. Discount Liquor, 2 locations, Milwaukee on 51st in Oklahoma and in downtown Waukesha on Barstow in Maine. See all of our specials at discountliquorinc.com.
Discount Liquor.
Dr. Aaron Holtebeck and his team at Holtebeck Eye Center make vision care a top priority. They are your premium provider for eye care and corrective eye surgeries. Dr. Holtebeck has been helping local patients with their eye care needs for over 20 years. Dr. Nausheen Abbas joined the Holtebeck Eye Center team last September, and her practice philosophy is to provide patient-centered medicine by giving all options. Located in Brookfield near the corner of Calhoun and Capitol. Learn more about their services at holtebeck.com.
You're listening to the Weekly Wager live from Potawatomi Sportsbook on 94.5 ESPN and at ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube.
Got the analysis coming up next here on 94.5 ESPN. Greg, Ben, and Josh DiMaggio with you. It's the Weekly Wager, wrapping things up from Potawatomi Sportsbook. I don't know if people will be spending the night here at the sportsbook, but I feel like tonight would be the night to do it, right? Just get up, get yourself some breakfast. They got breakfast all day long.
Tomorrow would be the you can wake up in your own bed, show up by 11 or whenever you need to get here to get a good seat, and then the late night game ends, you sleep in a bed somewhere in the sports book, and then you get a great breakfast here, maybe hit the slots, maybe hit the tables, and then go right back at it at 11 o'clock on Friday.
It's a big weekend. You got to come locked and loaded. You got to come with your best game here tomorrow into Friday over the weekend. You can't be jagging around on the Wednesday night. You got to be ready.
Well, yeah, tonight's preparation night.
Yes, and consume extra water, maybe liquid IV of some sort, extra electrolytes. You got to be ready to go.
I like how you think, Josh. I had the prime rib, by the way, at Dream Dance last Thursday. That was fantastic. If you're looking to deviate for a moment, get some late night prime rib. That'll put you to sleep. That was wonderful down at Dream Dance. A lot of options here at Potawatomi, no doubt about that. Let's turn our sights to the West region here. We've got a team in Florida that has really become a trendy pick here to win it all, if not reach the finals.
I almost hate how trendy it's becoming.
I know. Because right
me.
when the bracket came out, I just kind of went through very quickly, filled out a bracket with our Good Karma Brands teammates, and I had Florida as my winner. And here they are at minus 134, not far off of Duke in terms of the money to come out of the West and represent the West region in the Final Four.
But gosh,
Florida,
they make a really good case for this recently. The whole year.
You're right.
Every time you think they're not, they do.
They are now where I thought Auburn would be at this stage of the game. Right? If you would have said Florida's a number 1 seed coming out of a loaded SEC at plus 105, I would have said, yeah, that seems about right. And Auburn at minus 134, I would have said, yeah, that seems about right. Well, it has flip-flopped here in the matter of a few days, and now Florida is minus 134. I don't know if there's value in that, Ben. They're clearly the best team, but do you find value when you have to lay money?
The word value is anything over plus money. I'm just going to say right now, that's why Josh and I looked at Auburn at plus 105 to come out of the region.
Mm-hmm.
There's a plus there. There's value. Maybe minus 110, you could say there's value, but minus 134 is too much, especially with again, this is going to sound crazy, but I just told Josh in the break, I know UConn hasn't been awesome this year, but they're the back-to-back national champions, and to get out of the region at plus 2,500, you're telling me I'm not going to throw $20 on that? But also look at some of these other teams that I like. Texas Tech I like. I don't like Maryland. And I would probably go UConn and St. John's here, because you got one team that if they do beat Florida, they're probably going to ride the momentum, and I don't really love the 4 seed in Maryland and the 5 seed of Memphis. So they're getting the Elite Eight, and then if you get St. John's and somehow UConn matched up there, you're winning money and can probably maximize your money as well. So I'm talking myself into just the fade of Florida. Whether that's smart or not, it's kind of the way I'm leaning in my brain.
Yeah, I'm fading Florida for this here, for the odds we're talking about. I do think they do end up coming out of here. But if I'm looking for value and looking for long shots, things to go, I'm going to go Texas Tech and UConn. I'm going to stick with Ben on UConn. I think Texas Tech is like one of the more elite. I believe they're ranked 6 nationally in offensive efficiency. I think they can keep up with anyone they want to, and they can score in a way. They do have both of their stars coming back here. They are a great shooting team. They score multiple ways. They just do it the right way. So if I'm looking at anything, it's plus 520. I like a little bit of that. And then you add UConn for every reason Ben said. They've been there. They've done it. The coach has done it.
They have players on the team, despite all the turnover, that have still been a part of the environment and understand what it's about.
Yeah, and what's scaring me off of it is basically that Florida would have to meet UConn. I do think Florida is the presumptive favorite. There's a reason they're minus 134. But if they were seeing them later or if they were on the bottom side, you would feel a lot better about Florida. But that game right away, if they aren't ready and they're looking ahead and they're talking about, what's the Elite Eight going to look like, that's going to be a problem for them. So UConn and Texas Tech for me.
So just going back to the UConn thing, as you look at it, right? If this is a value thing, we're not putting a lot of money on it. We're putting a flyer on UConn. You're telling me that UConn can't beat Memphis or Maryland or Colorado State or Grand Canyon? They absolutely can. So it all depends on if they're able to win that second round game, which is a tough task. But if they do, your plus 2,500 is hedgeable down the road potentially.
Yeah, and the next game you're going to care about is probably Texas Tech or St. John's.
I like St. John's coming out of this in terms of value at plus 480, and here's why. If they walk by Omaha, it's not a problem. St. John's clearly separated themselves from the rest of the Big East. Without question. They were the best team in the Big East. They destroyed Marquette in the Big East tournament. And then you run into a Kansas team. They get a 7 seed, and there will be money on Kansas because of the name and the funny mascot, right? I mean, this is not the typical Kansas team. No. Or maybe it is because they have had some bad luck in the tournament. This is not a very good team. They're full of high-priced and well-compensated transfer portal players. It is not a very good team.
Shout out AJ
And I am anxious to see Hunter Dickinson's career end against Arkansas in round 1. And should St. John's end up against the number 10 seed in Arkansas, I think that is a cakewalk. I think this part of the bracket gets a little gnarly at the top. I've paid a lot of attention to Missouri after they ripped the heart out of my chest in a game against Alabama.
Put some money in my pocket as I faded you.
I'm very proud of you for that, Ben. But I look at their body of work. Yes, they're in a tough conference. That's 11 losses. It's a lot of losses. They get buoyed a little bit here because of the conference they played in. But Drake is also a 30-win team. They haven't lost in like 2 months. This team, I would not be surprised if you're asking me to pick a double-digit seed out of this quadrant. I would pick Drake over Missouri. And then it's a toss-up, right, with those other teams. I've never been a believer in really any of the schools coming out of Texas, most recently Baylor. But the Techs, the A&Ms of the world, I just don't believe in them historically. So St. John's, a pretty good bet to get to the Elite Eight. I do think they would run into Florida. But at plus 480, I like the value in St. John's.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if St. John's and Texas Tech in a chalk way match up, I just think Texas Tech is better offensively. Again, I know St. John's has size, but Texas Tech is a really, really, really quality team. And St. John's, they just continue to deliver. But I'm just like, this might just be a bias thing. I just don't think they're as good as it's been made out to be.
If it's a tiebreaker, I do like Rick Pitino's track record in the tournament, too, a guy who's certainly been there before. Time for best bets. Let's get to it. Josh, I want to start with you as our guest for the 3rd week in a row. We'd love to have your pick.
Benny, am I going to steal your best bet if I do end up going with Colorado State?
You are not.
All right. I'm going to take Colorado State here. I just don't have the number in front of me from Potawatomi on what
-2.
-2. Colorado -2. As we said
Colorado
earlier.
State.
What?
You said Colorado. Just want to make sure Colorado State.
Oh, yes, Colorado State. Yes, sorry. Thank you for correcting me on that. Only 2 times as a 12 seed. In this case, Colorado has been favored against a 5 seed. The 12 seeds are 2-0 when they are favored. I'm going to ride with that. I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to make that my pick of the week.
I had it. There it is. I love Tennessee minus 18.5 over Wofford. Tennessee, even with this low over-under, this is what they do in the tournament. The first round game, they always win this game by 25 because it's what they do. Wofford's not going to be able to find a way to score against that size and athleticism, and Tennessee has shown enough mustard offensively recently, going over like the 70-point mark in the semifinals and in the finals of the SEC. It's just one of my favorite things that I look at always as it pertains to a Tennessee team in the first round. And I was hoping and praying that number would be under 20, and anything under 20 for Tennessee, I was like, I'm taking.
I'm going to go off the beaten path here. I am not a believer in Arizona. After I saw them give up over 100 points to Wisconsin, I started to shift my thought on how powerful Arizona was. They've been up and down a little bit, and they end up a number 4 seed here. 14-point favorites over Akron? No, I'm not feeling that. I am feeling Akron. I think Akron is going to find a way to get this done. I don't think they're going to win, but I think this will be a much closer game than the spread would suggest. So I'm going to go with Akron. I think they're going to figure out a way to keep things very tight against Arizona. We are out of time in the program. Hope you enjoy the games. If you've made your arrangements to come down to Potawatomi Sportsbook, you're going to be glad you did it. This video wall is going to be popping about 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. The games will be on. The sound will be on for the Badgers game if you can get down here to enjoy it. Ben will be here with KBN.
Thursday, Friday, and I'll be in person Saturday talking some Badges.
Joshy will be here. Well, at least Jen, Gabe, and Chewy will be here. Josh will be running that program. That's Friday.
I'd imagine I find myself in here at some point over the weekend.
I think you should.
Yeah.
I think you should. I want to thank Chris Larson for producing the program. We are out of time from Potawatomi Sportsbook. Thanalysis is next on 94.5 ESPN. Enjoy.
Progressive knows if you have to choose between everyday life and your boat, boat wins.
What are you going to do?